What's goody, guys? Welcome back again. I'm Dira.
And I'm Karima. Peace and blessings, y'all.
Yes, and welcome back to Generation to Grace. This is episode 3. But now, because we've talked a ton about me and my evolution from adolescent, young childhood to adolescence to adulthood to motherhood, baby girl, we need to know about you. Are you ready for this? Doesn't matter.
Are
She
you
doesn't have a
ready for
choice.
this?
Listen, are y'all ready for this?
Hell.
That's the real question. So let's get into it, Mom. So let's get into the evolution of adolescence and your relationship with your mother.
I didn't have one.
Okay,
I
let's
did
talk
not
about
have
why.
a. I did not have a relationship with my mother at a very young age. I ran away from home.
At what age?
12. I ran away from home at 12. I was blessed I was blessed to have an aunt to put a roof over my head. And it was at that time when I ran away at 12 that I told myself that there's a certain way my life has to go.
Okay.
And I ran away.
Where did you go?
I ran away at midnight, living in Brooklyn, New York. And if y'all know Brooklyn, New York, all y'all Brooklynites, y'all know Empire Boulevard.
Ooh, child.
I lived right around from the Empire skating rink. And my aunt lived all the way up on Eastern Parkway in front of the Botanical Gardens. And at midnight, I was told to go to the store and get a 40 ounce and a pack of cigarettes. A 40 ounce and a pack of cigarettes. And
at 12.
At 12. And at the time, my sister was 2 years old.
Okay.
And
hey, Auntie Medina.
I wanted to take her. I wanted to take her with me so badly, but I knew that I couldn't. And so I left out of that. I left out of my mom's apartment with $20 in my hand. And I stood in front of the building on a cold night. And I looked to my left, which is the direction of the store.
Okay.
And I looked to my right, which was the direction that would take me around the corner towards my aunt's house. And it was a good 8 blocks to my aunt's house. And I kind of just at midnight. And I kind of stood there and I said, I'm not doing this. And I went right and took off running. And I've always been a runner. When I say I've always been a runner, I was always a sprinter. Track, I was a sprinter. I was a 100-yard dasher. I was a 60-yard dasher. So I was running.
No!
And like I said, for anybody tuning in who's a Brooklynite, you know Empire Boulevard for a 12-year-old is a big street to cross. Well, I'm doing this at midnight. And I hit the corner and traffic's going. It's not as steady as it normally is, but traffic's going. So I'm standing there and I'm looking over my shoulder. And the reason I'm looking over my shoulder is because the corner of Empire Boulevard was the back of my apartment. And had my mother gone to check on my sister, she could have looked out that window and might have seen me. So as I'm standing at that light and I'm just like, hurry up, light, move. I need you to move. There's 2 older women that were probably coming from church or something. I don't know. But they're looking at me and one of them asked, sweetie, what are you doing out here?
Oh, wow.
And the light turned and I took off running. And I ran all the way to my aunt's house. And when I got to my aunt's house, I rang the bell frantically. I I said my name over the intercom and she let me in. And so I was there probably, it wasn't until about 5 o'clock in the morning that my mom finally showed up at my aunt's house. And when she showed up, I was asleep, but I wasn't asleep because
she's a light sleeper.
Yes, I am even then. And I remember hearing her say, "You could just keep her. Give me my $20." And
that's what you heard her say?
that's what I remember her saying. And I just,
I'm sorry. You never shared this story before. This is. I'm so sorry, mommy.
anyway, so I just lay down and went to sleep, cried myself to sleep. And then, because I was in school at the time, my aunt, went into full throttle to make sure that, I got into school. And the cool thing was that I got to go back to my first elementary school, which I had loved. So
you found some joy.
I had found some joy. She got me enrolled right around the corner, and it was heaven. Like it was heaven that I knew I didn't have to deal with the abuse. My mom was abusive. My mom was neglectful. The hard part was I couldn't get my sister, and I just had to trust in Allah that He was going to watch over her. He was going to take care of her.
Yeah.
And so, age 12 is what really started my adolescent year. Because prior to that, it had been so topsy turvy. Living with my mom, not living with my mom. It was things that, that happened in my adolescence that if I were to sit and tell you the full story, you'd be like, wait a minute, how'd you get here? But it was then that I started to say, that's my past.
So I just have, because okay, you're 12 years old and you're asked to go to the store to get whatever. But it's the idea that at 12 years old, your mind was telling you to go.
Yeah.
Like,
I knew I had to go.
Your mind was making an adult decision.
So it wasn't even just based on you making me go outside at 12 o'clock at night. No. It wasn't even based on that. It was so much more that had occurred. Yeah. But yeah, at 12 years old, I told myself I had enough of this garbage. I had enough of this treatment. I had enough of hurt. Well, in my head, I knew I had had enough, but Allah is going to put you in situations and put things in your life because He's trying to grow you. Yeah. And I eventually found that out, and I'm still finding that out. But yeah.
Do you think, or do you feel like you were kind of shorted your adolescence in some way?
Oh, majorly. Most definitely. I had to grow up way too fast. And because I love my mother. My children know that despite it all, we did reconcile years later.
An
oh my
extended
God,
grace.
years later. Yeah. But growing up, my mom had me when she was 16, and she basically chose drugs in the street instead of me. And my saving grace was my grandmother. Yeah. My grandmother, and we mentioned it, my grandmother had 10 kids. And up until my grandmother died, it was heaven. I mean, I lived with my grandmother for the beginning of my life. And that was one of the things that I loved about having MJ.
That dynamic.
Yes.
The grandmother.
Because I knew how happy I was with my grandmother. And I can remember, for a while, I was the youngest. For about 5 or 6 years, I was the youngest grandchild. Gotcha. And so, of course, hey.
Yeah. I'm like, you getting all the attention.
I'm getting all the attention. And I lived with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you lived with her.
And I lived with her. And so when she passed is when things really went left. Like all my uncles and, all my uncles started going to jail and doing stupid stuff. And, and
it sounds like everyone was affected by
everybody. Everyone was affected by it. But like I said, it was 12 when I realized, I'm tired of it. And even in that time, my dad, I never lived with my dad, never.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew who my dad was, and my dad always made it a point. It wasn't a month that went by that I didn't see my dad, even though he didn't live with me. He always made it his
he was
point.
Still present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for a while, I had my grandmother on my dad's side, and my uncle and an aunt, until she passed away.
Okay.
So I had that dynamic, and I was blessed to have that, even if it was very short lived.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went to live with my aunt, I was not a rebellious kid. I was not a disrespectful. I was not disrespectful. I was not a disobedient child at all. I was not. I wasn't really sneaky. Because obedient? I think I was obedient with a cause. Yeah. And when I say that is because
with reason.
I learned early on that it wasn't out of the kindness of her heart that she took me in.
Gotcha.
It was a benefit. And once I learned that, again, I told myself, not something I'm going to have in my life.
Yeah.
And this was at a young age.
At what? Okay, so you left at 12. I guess at what age or what age were you when
immediately? Immediately. Because there were a lot of things I saw as a kid that I shouldn't have seen. There were a lot of things I was exposed to that I should not have been exposed to. And all those things I put in a jar and I said, nope, this is a don't and this is a do. And the blessing was that I had a second family, and that was my best friend, whose mom and dad were like, they were the cherry on top of the cake.
Gotcha. The epitome of what you thought.
Yes, yes, and they embraced me wholeheartedly from the moment from when I was little and just visiting, straight up until I was permanently in my aunt's house. And when things was, I knew I could go there. And they exposed me to things that my aunt wasn't exposing me to. They taught me about the library. They taught me about botanical gardens. They taught me about the museum. They taught me about traveling around Brooklyn at a young age and being safe. Gotcha. They showed me that, oh, wow, Black kids can go to Africa, because they were both scholars. Yeah. And I saw even at that young age that they had expectations for their children. And so shout out to Neonis and Torrance. I love y'all. And I was so grateful for them. And then there were other people in the building that I lived in, because when I grew up in Brooklyn, it didn't matter. We had Yugoslavians, Ukrainians, Jews, Jamaicans. We had it all in our building, and we knew each other. Yeah. We knew each other's kids. We knew each other's families.
There's a post on Instagram, not to cut you off. There's a post on Instagram right now circulating. I want to say it's in New York, but the lady that's narrating the story, it's like old New York, or back in the time that a community was the idea. Right. And basically that's what she was saying. Yep. Times where your next door neighbor could spank your child. Yep. Your next door neighbor
I got popped.
But you didn't have to lock your doors because everyone knew everyone.
Because somebody come to your door, knock on the door. Oh, it's so and so. They walk in. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
The community.
It was and I mean, and we had Miss Rose. She was a Jewish old lady that lived in the building. If Miss Rose was up that day, we couldn't get away with nothing. I don't know if Miss Rose might have been the first person to own what are those
the scooters?
No, what are those stupid things that the hover?
The hover.
What is the stupid remote control that you can see everything that we have now? Loss of words. Boop.
Yeah, I'm like,
anyway. I swear she had it because she saw everything.
Oh, okay. I know what you're
You know
talking
what
about. I
I'm
got
talking
what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I get what you're.
She could see, she saw everything. If I did something 3 blocks away at school, any of us, because it was like a group of 10 of us that walked to school and back home every day.
Yeah.
And if we did something we weren't supposed to do, best believe all our moms and dads knew about it before we got home. We'd
That's
be
a real
like,
community.
"What the hell?" Miss Rose, if she was out, she snatched your ear up. Oh yeah, yeah.
That don't even exist now.
Yeah,
Kids is fighting Miss Rose.
Nope, they beat her up.
That's crazy.
But it was.
Let me ask you that. Let me ask you this while you said that. Do you think after you left your mom, and okay, now you're still at your aunt's house, but you have the exposure from the honest in Torrance, and you also have the community, so to say. Do you think that was kind of like shifting your, I guess, your experience into adolescence in a positive way at this point?
It was. It definitely was, because I felt guarded. I felt, when I say guarded, I mean safe. I felt safe to an extent, because I knew there were people out there who didn't have the dynamics that I had.
Yeah.
And so I knew I could go to the honest and feel safe and not worry about the crap that was. And so it did, because I saw that, oh, you know what? I don't have to just be here. There's other things I can do.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing was, even though I saw those things, I wasn't provided the opportunity to do them.
Gotcha.
Like one thing, I used to get teased on the block because we had so many kids in the house. There was about 7 of us in the house, 7 or 8 of us in the house. And so was always washing clothes. And who got stuck always going to the laundromat? Me.
You.
So I would get out of school at 2:30 and be at the laundromat from 3:30 to 9 o'clock at night. So I never got to like really play with my friends until the weekends and stuff. Luckily, I had good friends that sometimes they would just come to the laundry with me. But nonetheless, I wasn't able to really run and rip and roar like other kids did. But when I had my opportunities, I did the right thing. I didn't wild out. I didn't, my aunt was a stickler for, if y'all get in that house if I get in that house before y'all, it's on. So that's where my obedience always came.
Oh, I feel like that's like house rules.
That was where the obedience. I was always made. Let me get in this house. If she said, when I come in, the dishes better be done and some food better be on that table, it was done. It was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
That's low key where you're nurturing.
Yeah. I think I took those things because regardless to her being a Gestapo,
dun dun dun.
But regardless of that, her ship ran smooth. And a lot of it was fear. And for me, it was because I knew I wasn't your biological child.
Gotcha.
I knew that there were days when my cousins embraced me and was like, sister, and then there were more times when they were like, why are you here? You're just in our way.
That's so unfortunate.
And I knew I was not in a home that was 100% open to me, and so I did everything I was supposed to do. I followed the rules. I followed the regimen. Eventually, we moved out of Brooklyn.
Like all together.
And I had to make new friends, and that's where my other part of me evolved.
What's the other part of
the other part of me is going from, and y'all always say, oh, she not playing, she gonna tell you like it is, blah, 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 blah. But then there was another part of me I had to develop because I was around a lot of Caucasians. And so I had to learn how to balance that out. not be a fake, because I'll never be a fake or a phony.
One thing you can never say about Karima, fake.
But I had to stop and remember, you uphold yourself a certain way.
Okay.
Caucasians are going to think of me one way, and blacks will think of me another way. Mm-hmm. And I taught myself to be manageable no matter what, but be myself.
Okay. I think you did a good job with, like, I guess, instilling that into your children as well, because I mean we've grown up around both. We've grown up around multiple different ethnicities, cultures, yes, the whole nine. So and we're able to still be our authentic self and not have to, like, feel like, oh, I need to tone myself down. I need to, you know what I mean? Right. Like, you can still just be who you
nobody
are.
should ever tone themselves down. And
but people do.
Yeah, they do. But I taught myself that at a very young age. But then now is where I'm in my teen years. I'm in junior high.
Still, so like 15.
Yeah.
Well, no, we can't, because you got
I graduated high school.
Your girl graduated.
I graduated at 16. Despite my upbringing, very smart. I managed to not go to kindergarten, and I skipped 3rd grade. So
they're not skipping kids nowadays.
So I graduated at 16, from high school. But even once I was able to get a job, I started babysitting for my cousin's wife first. And then when we moved out of New York City to New York State, I started babysitting for other people, because being in a house full of 8 kids, you don't have nothing that's your own. You have nothing that is your own. We shared clothes, we shared shoes. It didn't matter if somebody's foot was bigger than mine. We found a way to stuff paper, and we shared. And I knew I hated that. Yeah. But it was what had to be done. Yeah. So when I got the chance to work as a babysitter, I could walk to where I was babysitting, which was great, because my aunt wasn't one to cater to you as a child.
I'm like, you wouldn't have to depend on anybody to make your money.
Nope. And the first babysitting job got me a second babysitting job, and so I had money. But the problem was, it wasn't looked at as my money.
Because you weren't in your own household.
Because I wasn't in my own household, and the Gestapo felt like, that's mine. So yes, there were times where I hid stuff.
I mean, it clearly was necessary.
Right. So then, finished junior high.
Were you, because I'm going to ask you this.
What?
Now you're finishing junior high, you're about to go to high school. Are you in contact with your mom during this time?
Not at all. Wow. Not at all. There was some episodes before we moved out of Brooklyn where my mom even kidnapped me one time.
Grandma, what?
My mother kidnapped me one time because she had my sister still. Well, at the time, she still had my sister. And my sister, my mother and my sister's father kidnapped me because they wanted somebody to be there to watch
your sister.
The sister. Yes.
That's crazy.
So they snatched me right off the corner. We were supposed to be going to get ice cream, and they snatched me and threw me in the car, and we were gone. And I was away from my aunt for about 2 years.
2 years?
For about 2 years. And the crazy thing was,
this is like a Lifetime movie. What?
Yeah. The crazy thing was, the first year, I was with my sister, her father, and my mother. I don't even remember what happened. It'll come back to me someday. But at some point, I ended up I remember how, because my mother and my sister's father separated. They broke up.
So it's just you, your mom, and your sister.
Because my sister's father was abusive to my mother.
Okay.
They broke up, and it ended up that he took us to masjid. Okay. And he put us in the masjid, and my mother couldn't find us. Things I never told you. She couldn't find us, and at this point, he had met.
How long was this period of time that she couldn't find you?
It was 1 year with her and him, and then it was over. So over maybe 3 years, I was out of my aunt's house.
Dog, this is a lifetime. If you're watching this,
so it's a story. He ended up meeting another woman, and it was that woman. We all went to masjid.
Okay.
Well, he was a lone wolf. He was not stable. Okay. But he would disappear from the masjid, and then he'd show back up. Well, if I remember correctly, the brothers was like, listen, you either gonna be Muslim or you not. So eventually he took us out of the masjid. When he took us out of the masjid, he ended up getting an apartment. And till this day, I don't know why he got an apartment where he got an apartment, because it was like around my family members.
So they were bound to find you.
They were bound to find us.
Did they end up finding you?
They found us. One day we were outside playing, and he would always tell his wife, which I believe her name was Zainab. He would tell Zainab, don't let them go out and play. Well, a woman is like, I'm not going to keep these kids cooped up. Yeah. So she let us go play out in front of the door. Well, we're outside, and
this is crazy.
And somebody walks past, and they called my name. Of course, I instinctively looked. Yeah. And he just kept on. He was like, "Salam alaikum, little sister," and I said, "Wa alaikum salam." And kept playing with my sister, and then something told me, "Go in the house." So I took her. We went in the house, and I told Zainab that somebody had talked to me outside, and she was like, "Who was it?" I was like, "I don't know. He knew my name." Well, of course, she wouldn't let us go back outside.
Yeah, not after that.
So then I believe we were walking to the store one day, and so I heard a knock at the door. And at the time, it was me, my sister, the wife, and my sister's father. Okay. And nobody knew we were there. Nobody ever came. Nobody. His family, nobody. So
it was really
him. Yeah. So my sister's father, being the paranoid person he was, goes in the room and gets his gun.
And this is a Lifetime movie. I'm convinced. Because what?
And he answers the door. Who is it? And all I hear on the other side is so and so. It was my mother.
I know she was about that life.
So he was like, who? She said it again. And then she backed it up. We'll open this MFing door, so and so. So he opens the door, and there she is standing there. And he's like, just looking at her. She said, I came to get my MFing kids. And at this point, there's really nothing he can do. Yeah. So he threatens her, and with the gun, and she's like, you ain't gonna do nothing, just give me my kids. So he ends up realizing, hey, ain't nothing I can do now. Out in the hallway was the Muslim brother who called my name, and my cousin's father. Gotcha. So this dummy goes to put the gun away and shoots the floor. What? Scared the heck out of his wife, and she took us up, left whatever we had with them, which wasn't much, left it there, and took us.
And that was the end of that.
And then 2 years later, I ran away, And about a year, maybe 6 months into my having run away, he came and took my sister from my mother. So my mother didn't have any children at that time. Well, then we moved. Nope. Then I found out I had a brother 13 years later. We're 13 years apart, I should say.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, that's when we moved out of New York City. Junior high finished, not remarkable. High school, not remarkable. Things we could talk about later. Most remarkable thing was I was in nursing school.
Okay.
I was going to vocational school half day my junior year, my
Bring
senior
back
year.
Vocational school,
please. I was going to vocation. They do. Oh. They do. I was going to vocational school half day, regular school the other half.
Of you kids leaving school half day. Oh yeah, I gotta go to this school to do this. And I used to just be like, you're so adult. You an adult. Like you grown. You get to leave.
And I just remember busting my tail trying to finish school, and had great grades.
Okay.
My junior year I had excellent grades. My senior year things started getting rough at the aunt's house. Okay. Because I was seeing more things and realizing I just did not want to be there. Yeah. And then I got my first job, McDonald's.
Mickey D's.
Yep, I got a job at McDonald's, and that's where things messed up because I used to have to sneak. That's when I stopped being the most obedient. I would sneak. I would say I had to work at such and such a time, but knew I didn't because it would let me get to work early so I could then go to the mall and cash my check, buy my own clothes, and then come back to work. By the time, because at that time, whatever money I made was again being taken away from me.
Yeah.
But that was my deal. On paydays, I always lied and said I was working at this time, but I would work a little later, which would allow me time to go back and forth to the mall, shop, buy my own little outfits, and I would hide the outfits. Long story. Jeez. Anyway, so working at McDonald's, I'm in high school and taking nursing school. My grades start dropping because I'm working and I'm being responsible, but those who were supposed to be picking me up from work were not. So my grades struggled, but I still graduated early. All my regular grades were fine. It was my nursing grades. Okay. And I didn't finish nursing school, but I was certified as a nursing assistant.